I am definitely cultured at this point. Well, there are some instances that I lose it because I go back to my old self. And one way is if I get mad, all of a sudden redneck comes out and I just start, all kinds of, you don't even understand the words that are coming out of my mouth because it's just really deep hit sounding. Well, when I was down at Branson, I was with the kids, and we were listening to David Crowder, which is an excellent musician, and he said something that I thought, uh-oh, here comes my Southern roots coming out. He said, can I do a hoedown? And I grew up in a small church in Southern Indiana, and a hoedown was what we loved to do. And so I was like, I am in trouble. Well, he started singing, I'll Fly Away. And many of you may know that, but I'll Fly Away is about as hoedown as you can get when a Christian song. And so I'm clapping, I'm stomping up and down. The kids are just looking at me like, what in the world is going on with this guy? So every now and then it comes up, well, if we are on our quest to be genuine, every now and then we are still going to have that hiccup. If we are genuine for many years, that hiccup is still going to happen. And I think in order to be genuine, we need to realize that we are human and that when we do mess up, it's okay. And we go on. But to have that, I think there's a fear of being genuine. There's a fear of being real because I don't know enough. I don't deserve it. And I think that's why there are many people that aren't in church today is because they're afraid to be too serious. They're afraid to be too genuine. I found out when studying the last sermon that I made, I found an interesting thought that the virgin birth, and I thought this would be something that non-Christians would really struggle with understanding, because whenever you hear someone on the TV or maybe even talk to someone, then they may struggle with, well, the virgin birth, how did that happen? How does that happen? And I got to studying, and when I looked, it said that even the Muslims believe that Jesus was born of a virgin. That 47% of people who are not Muslim or Christian believe that Jesus was born as a virgin. And I think that to me was just mind-blowing, because so it's not basically what I concluded is the reason why people are not Christian has nothing to do with the Bible. It has everything to do with us. It has everything to do with the church. First, we need to be genuine. I think the second thing is we need to have purpose. We need to have purpose. And I think that is a very important part of our service to others, but also an important part into our own lives. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 through 11 talks about purpose. For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were under the cloud, and that they all passed through the sea. They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food, drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock and accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them. Their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. So basically, what is going on here is this is talking about Moses and being lost in the wilderness. And Moses had a captive audience. Where were they going to go when he was speaking? They were in the middle of the desert. They had to follow him. And so he had this audience, and they were doing everything, doing the Jewish traditions. They were doing everything that was being told. But God was not pleased because they did it over routine, and they didn't do it with meaning. They didn't do it with purpose. And I think in order to have purpose, we have to establish that we're a genuine Christian. Once we establish that, then we need to have that purpose in everything we do. Occasionally, I will put together an event or something, and after the event or during the event, I'm thinking, why did I do this? What was my purpose for doing this? And I think if I can admit to that there are times where I feel that way, then I think that's where we struggle. Whenever we do something for the Lord, we have to have a reason. We have to have a reason for what we do with the youth, what we do with adults, what we do with our worship. There has to be that purpose, and the purpose shouldn't just be serving God, because that gets too vague and not interpreted. But our purpose should be fulfilled. Why do we do things? Why do we go to different places? Why do we have youth group, like in my sense, why do I have youth group this certain way? And there has to be that deep purpose, the reason for what we do. And I think, for an example, when I took the trip down to Branson, the purpose for that trip was to re-energize kids. When they get too routine into their day-to-day lives, it is oftentimes very easy to forget about God and forget about the relationship. You go to a conference like we went to, and you get re-energized. Now, you don't have to travel to do that, but that is the reason why we do things like that. There's many reasons why, but if we do things just to do them, if we do things just to be routine, we are going to be ineffective as a church and as Christians as a whole. This is not going to work out if we do not have a purpose for what we're doing. So I encourage you that in your own life, in your relationship with God, that you have a purpose for what you do, but also in your work with God, that you have a purpose for doing what God wants you to do and serving God. Now, these things have occurred as examples to keep us from the settings of hearts on evil things as they did. Do not be idolaters that some of them were, as it is written, the people sat down and eat and drank and got up and indulged in revelry. We should not commit sexual immorality as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 of them died. We should not test Christ as some of them did, and they were killed by snakes. And do not grumble as some of them did, and they were killed by the destroying angel. So this is Paul talking about being in the wilderness and all these people being punished or being put to death because of the sins that they did. And I think the reason why God did this is because God was trying to purify and trying to keep that group together. Because with that many people, we're talking about millions of people that are traveling, with that many people, God had to keep that together. And if it goes either way, one way or another, it can be the downfall of the church. And that is exactly what happened to the church at Corinth. They got too involved in the sexual immorality. They got too involved in drunkenness that they forgot what they were doing. They lacked purpose. These things happened to them as examples were written down for warnings of us on the compulsion of the age has to come. So, if we do not have purpose, we're basically just reeds blowing in the wind. And there's no meaning. So if we don't have purpose, then we're not relaying purpose. I'm sorry, that door just flew open and totally lost my train of thought. If a doctor or a mechanic didn't have a reason for what they did, or for everything that they did, they wouldn't be a doctor or a mechanic very long. And they certainly would not be successful. So in what we do for God and in what we do in our own individual lives, I pray that you have purpose in what you do. So we need to be genuine. We need to have a purpose for what we do. But I think we can do all that. We can do all that and still not really have that genuine religion. We can do all that and still not have that relationship with God unless we have love. And 1 Corinthians 13 is a chapter completely dedicated to love. We are only going to be reading the first 3 verses of chapter 13. Again, this whole chapter is dedicated to love and what love means. Now, in this first 3 verses, Paul is kind of talking about himself and explaining to them, using himself as an example. I speak in tongues and of men and of angels, but do not have love. I am only a resounding gong, clanging cymbal. If I have a gift of prophecy and can fathom all the mysteries and all the knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, give my body over to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, I am gaining nothing. So we can do all this. We can make sure that we're a genuine Christian. We can make sure we have that genuine religion, that we have that relationship with God. We can be sure that everything that we do for God has a meaning, has a purpose that can be delivered to others and delivered to us. But if we do not have love, then we are wasted everything that we do, if we do not have love. Now, when we revert back to James chapter 1, verse 27, it talks about what the true and genuine religion is. Well, what are you thinking? Why is it say that the true religion is taking care of widows and orphans in trouble? Why would they say that? Is it because that was something that was needed? Why did they say that? Why did they use that example? And the reason why they use that example is because that example you have to have love to take care of. That they're saying basically, if you are going to have that genuine religion, that true religion, then you have to have enough love to take care of the lowly people of the world, the orphans that had no money. At this time, the widows had no money because they didn't usually have a man that provided the money. You had to take care of the poor. If you're taking care of the poor, then you are displaying love. Now, in more than that, we cannot just have love in our heart and say, hey, I love everybody, and you can have genuine love. But if you do not show love, then are you doing what you want to do? And that's absolutely not. I think you can either have love in here, but if you do not show it, and people do not know what love is through you, then you're still wasting your talents. You're wasting what God has given you. I think an example of love that I think is so obvious is the dog's love. When you come home, the dog's excited to see you. Well, some dogs are excited to see you. I got 1 out of 2 that's excited to see you when you come home. But a dog's love, they just have to be loved by you. If a dog is not loved, then they just are neglected. They kind of fall apart. And many times there's been proven that if a dog does not receive love, it cannot live. And I think that is an interesting fact because dogs you can tell by the excitement that the dog sees you when you're coming or the excitement that dogs have over, my dog, Brutus, he just gets excited over everything. And you can, if you say it in an exciting voice, you can tell him anything. He's like jumping up and down and so excited. But I think they show, and I think this is important because God created them for a reason, and I think God creates everything for a reason. But I think he creates like a dog or other creatures that may have that show love. I'm not going to say cat because trust me, they don't show love. Mine doesn't. But I think he does that to show us, hey, this is what I mean when I'm talking about love. This is what I mean when I'm talking about love each other. That there should not be a doubt that you love people and that you care for them. And I know that's why he made dogs and other creatures the way that he made is to remind us of the love. Well, I think we've seen 3 essential parts. If a church does not have these 3 parts, I don't think the church is at all doing what God has called us to do. We must be genuine. We must be purposeful, but we also have love. And I think we don't need to only apply this to the church, but apply it to our own lives, our own individual lives. I think it's really easy to grow up in church and to be in church for many, many years and be fake. And it's comfortable, in matter of fact. It's comfortable to be fake. It's comfortable to not be genuine, not to have that real religion. And in order to have true religion, you have to look past the being caught up in the labels. I mean, we have Christian for everything. We have Christian music. We have Christian movies. We have Christian, about everything you can think of, there's a Christian label on it. And I think we can get caught up too much in the label as Christian. But if we get caught up into that, we do not have that genuine relationship with God. And if we don't have that genuine, that deep relationship with God, then we're not really Christian. We're not really, doing what God has called us. So I urge you that this year, this new year, that if you feel like in your past that you've been a little bit fake or that you don't have that deep religion, then I encourage you this year to try to get that. I encourage you this year to be more genuine, to work on being more purposeful, and to also have love. At this time, Kathy will come up and